I am Queen Anne Barbie Gordon, Queen of the Kingdom of Astron. I speak not only as sovereign, but as witness. The King of Astron, Sir Gordon, is my husband. But before he was crowned, before banners were raised and oaths sworn, he was something else entirely. He was a knight, an outlaw, a protector of the forgotten. What you are about to hear is not merely his story, it is our story, of a realm forged in turmoil, of a crown earned not by birth, but by trust, sacrifice, and the will of the people. This is the story of how Astron endured. The sun bled across the eastern sky, staining the tawny grounds in bruised plum and burning gold. Banners snapped above gnarled oaks, and the steady clang of hammer on anvil echoed from the forged tents. Sir Gordon, gold noble knight of the crossed swords, tightened his gilded gauntlet and surveyed the field with practised calm. His armour fit like a second skin, worn not for ceremony, but for purpose. Across the lists stood Sir Stewart, silver noble knight, elegant even in full plate, resting a hand on the mane of his white destrier. He greeted Gordon with easy humour, and Gordon answered in kind, confident that gold endured even when silver shone brightly. When the trumpets sounded, the world narrowed to hooves, lances, and impact. By day's end, both knights stood victorious, sharing ale beneath a cooling sky. Yet, even then, the world beyond the lists was changing. To the west, lowland nation rose, absorbing smaller realms beneath its banner. To the east, the Republic of Goknita declared itself a beacon of democracy, championed by a charismatic leader named Bill. Borders hardened, councils multiplied, standing armies replaced sworn orders. Sir Stewart entered lowland service, his silver armour bearing a new crest. Gordon, wary of politics, watched as the crossed swords became inconvenient to rulers who valued control over justice. Years later, rain drummed on a tavern roof as a crier announced President Bill's election and proclaimed Moonland as the ancestral home of Goknita. Gordon reacted with disbelief, dismissing Moonland as a fabricated myth meant to justify expansion. The Republic's ideals soon strained beneath governance and war. Lowland pressed relentlessly, and Goknita expanded in reply. The common folk paid for both. Then came the decree demanding the disbandment of the crossed swords. Gordon refused. Declared an outlaw and stripped of land and title, he fled with loyal knights into Geronimo Heights, a wild land of jagged peaks, ancient forests, and hidden valleys where law failed to hold. There, survival demanded loyalty rather than rhetoric. Gordon did not arrive as a conqueror, he arrived as a protector. His band shed bright heraldry for earth tones and repaired mail. They struck Republic tax convoys, not villages. Stolen grain returned to hungry hands. Gold taken from corrupt officials reappeared as tools and seed. Mercy was given where possible, and cruelty was punished without hesitation. The Republic called it sedition. The people called it justice. Stories spread quickly. Villages under Gordon's protection slept without fear. Dispossessed knights and ashamed soldiers joined him. Merchants quietly rerouted caravans through the heights, knowing they would lose less to the outlaws than to lawful fees. What began as refuge became authority. The Republic escalated. Columns marched into the heights. Villages were burned as examples. Gordon answered with precision, isolating forces, forcing surrender without slaughter, and returning stolen goods by dawn. His restraint earned him loyalty that fear never could. An old woman once pressed an iron circlet into his hands, claiming it belonged to a just ruler long past. Gordon did not wear it, but he kept it. Lowland watched closely. Sir Stewart, now a general, studied the reports and quietly observed that outlaws did not behave this way, but kings did. Within Gottneiter, now increasingly calling itself Astron, faith in the Republic frayed. Elections changed little, and the Moonland myth rang hollow against hunger and conscription. The people compared lawful authority to outlaw justice, and the comparison was not flattering. By the time Field Marshal Nick rode into Geronimo Heights under a banner of truce, Gordon was no longer hiding. He ruled without throne or decree. His words settled disputes. Roads under his protection were safe. Taxes were voluntary. Justice was swift and understood. Nick saw it immediately. Gordon was already what Astron needed. All that remained was to name it. Kingdoms, after all, are not born in palaces. They are born where order fails, and someone stands in its place. The coup that ended the Republic did not begin with riots or blood. It began with silence. Field Marshal Nick understood that the Republic of Astron would not fall by force alone. Its institutions were hollow and its leadership exhausted, but its symbols still commanded loyalty among the cautious. To shatter it openly would invite civil war and draw Lowland's intervention. So Nick chose another path. The military moved first, not as an army, but as administrators. Units loyal to Nick rotated into key districts under the guise of temporary security measures. Communications hubs, armories, and treasuries found themselves guarded by disciplined soldiers who answered only to him. Markets stayed open, roads remained clear, taxes eased, conscription offices closed for review. No banners changed, no proclamations were made. The Republic's leaders noticed too late. Within the Senate Hall, debates continued over budgets, elections, and the failing Moonland Initiative. Outside its walls, the machinery of state had already shifted hands. Couriers delayed messages. Governors found their authority quietly overridden. The president, Bill's successor, became isolated and irrelevant. Presented with a choice between resignation and ruin, he resigned. The Senate dissolved itself within the hour. That night, proclamations were read across Astron announcing stability rather than revolution. A transitional council would govern. Elections were postponed indefinitely. The military assumed oversight in the interest of public order. Then Nick summoned Sir Gordon. The outlaw entered the capital not as a fugitive, but as a guest. Crowds gathered without being called. Veterans recognized him. Farmers from Geronimo Heights knelt. Soldiers removed their helmets. Nick did not offer him power. He acknowledged it. By deed and by consent, he declared, this man already ruled. Thus ended the age of experiments. Republic, Confederacy, Federation, all had risen and fallen. What remained was the crown, not as relic, but as the only institution that endured. Astron did not become peaceful, but it became stable, and in that stability history moved forward, whether willingly or not. The coronation that followed placed the crown upon Gordon not by conquest, but by acceptance. The Republic ended not with screams, but with relief. Astron became the United Kingdoms of Astron, carrying forward the traditions of the past under monarchy. But unity proved fragile. Among the constituent realms, none adapted more poorly than the Prussian kingdom-state of Astron. Its leadership, forged by rigid discipline and military hierarchy, viewed the crown not as stability, but as obstruction. Under the guise of emergency authority, Prussian forces seized key institutions and declared themselves the true protectors of Astron. Gordon was retained as a figurehead, a living symbol stripped of agency. The response was swift. The Kingdom of Astron, the Duchy of Castile, and loyal allies formed a counter-coalition. The Prussian leadership collapsed under combined pressure, and the Prussian state was dissolved by force of arms. Yet the people were left humiliated and embittered. Seeking stability, the remaining realms formed the Confederate States of Astron. Gordon remained king in title only, reduced to ceremony while sovereign states squabbled over authority. Within months, paralysis turned to anarchy. Trade collapsed. Armed factions clashed openly. Gordon, Nick, and the newly risen Field Marshal Garrick acted without negotiation. Royal loyalists marched on the Confederate capital of Goknita. The Confederate army, divided by loyalty, collapsed quickly. By nightfall, the Confederacy ended in silence. This time Gordon did not hesitate. The kingdom of Astron was restored as the central realm. A reconstituted Confederate States of Astron was granted autonomy over defined territory, bound to the crown. To settle Prussian resentment, the Prussian Federation of Astron was re-established as a nation, autonomous yet loyal. Each realm would govern independently, each would retain Gordon as sovereign. Finally, Gordon rewarded those who had never abandoned him. From Geronimo Heights he carved the Duchy of Castile as his personal feudal domain, loyal, fortified, and unambiguous. Thus ended the age of experiments. Republic, Confederacy, Federation, all had risen and fallen. What remained was the crown, not as relic, but as the only institution that endured. Astron became peaceful and stable, and in that stability history moved forward, whether willingly or not. God save the kingdom of Astron.